If I'm honest, one concern I've had as a worship leader is how am I going to continue to be relevant as time goes on? When you look around the church today, especially in the contemporary modern church, there's a bit of ageism, right? There's a priority of putting young people on stage, and sure, I'm only 28 right now, but what happens when I'm 38 or 48 or 58? Can I grow older while at the same time being a relevant worship leader and have something meaningful to share with the next and upcoming generations? And I think the answer is yes, and actually I'm very confident the answer is a resounding yes, that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can be a relevant worship leader. And the solution to being relevant isn't necessarily wearing the latest cool hip styles of fashion like skinny jeans or long tees. And remaining relevant over time and adapting to culture does not mean needing to compromise on theology or really important values behind our philosophy of worship ministry. So in this video, I just want to share with you 3 simple tips that are going to help you remain relevant as a worship leader. If we haven't met yet, my name is Jake Gosling. I'm the creator of Churchfront.com, helping you lead gospel-centered and tech-savvy worship. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel so you can receive all of our latest content to help you grow yourself and grow your church. I recently picked up Carey Nieuwhof's latest book, Didn't See It Coming. If you haven't heard of Carey Nieuwhof or his latest book, I highly recommend for you to check out both him, because he has lots of great leadership resources like a great podcast, a great blog, and his book is about the 7 things that leaders often don't see coming. And one of those things is irrelevance, and that's why I'm making this video. The chapter he has on irrelevance was really powerful, and he's got a lot of practical tips for how to remain relevant as a leader. And first, I want to talk about the reason we need to remain relevant as worship leaders. It's not for relevancy's sake. The reason you want to remain relevant to culture as well as younger generations is so that you can continue to have a positive influence on them and speak truths into their lives. And I don't know about you, but I want to be able to continue leading the next generation for many years to come. I want to continue to be able to speak truth into their lives and help them better understand what it means to worship God. I like how Carey Nieuwhof puts it in his book. He says, "Your willingness to change gives you the ability to communicate timeless truths in a way that has meaning to those who come after you. If you want to influence the next generation or the current one, change is your friend. If you stubbornly cling to outdated methods, soon you'll find yourself selling Kodak film after photography has gone digital, or hawking DVDs after movies have gone online." For worship leaders, I think we'll find ourselves playing really old songs that really just don't connect with people today. Or maybe we're just using outdated technology that just doesn't sound good or look good. If we are not willing to change and adjust and adapt to culture, we are gonna become irrelevant, and we're gonna fail to be able to continue to lead them and share with them and communicate with them these timeless truths. So I hope you understand that the purpose of remaining relevant isn't for the sake of just being hip and cool and up to date. It frankly comes down to how effective of a leader do you want to be in 2018 or whatever year you're watching this video. So here are the 3 simple tips I have for you to remain relevant as a worship leader. Tip number 1, be a lifelong learner. Since you're watching this video, you're on YouTube, which is for the most part a learning platform, also an entertainment platform, but this video is more of an educational one. I know that you're interested in learning more and growing yourself as a worship leader, so keep that up and never be satisfied with where you're at. I know I get really frightened when I feel like, man, I just kind of like know everything I need to know and I don't really need to push myself to learn anymore. I've actually found myself thinking that a lot recently, especially as I build Churchfront and everybody comes to me for knowledge. It's easy for me to get complacent with where I'm currently at. So that's why I continuously remind myself to keep learning more. I highly recommend reading books on worship ministry or just reading books on leadership in general. Push yourself to learn new tools for your worship ministry. Whether that may be using a click and tracks for the first time, it may be using Planning Center for the first time, maybe it's using software like Ableton Live. I see it all the time that worship leaders get so comfortable in their routines and eventually they just kind of get stuck in a rut. And then eventually 5 to 10 years passes and then they're 5 to 10 years behind all the best practices for worship ministry. So do not get stuck in a rut. Be a lifelong learner. Never be content with your current level of knowledge. There are so many great podcasts, and other YouTube channels. Practical Worship by Dave Dolphin, Worship Tutorials by Brian Wall, Worship Leader Hangout by my friend Chad, Mina Studio by my friend Nathan, Pro Church Tools by Brady Shear. Don't necessarily just even get stuck in the rut of learning all about worship ministry all the time. Expand your knowledge and learn about different topics. Be a lifelong learner. And part of that process too is being an observer and learner of culture. And as worship leaders, we want to observe and learn from the latest trends, especially when it comes to music and art in media. Because as much as you may hate top 40 music or some of the mainstream stuff out there, that's the stuff that connects with people, and we can learn from those things, the positive principles and aspects of those things that are really connecting and jiving with the current zeitgeist of the day. So enough about that first tip, just be a lifelong learner. My second tip for you is to prioritize the mission over the method. And this is another little gold nugget from Carey Nieuwhof's book, Didn't See It Coming. It's really easy, especially in the church world, to confuse mission with method. So we have the mission of loving God, loving our neighbor, and making disciples. And we often confuse that with the method of this is how we've always done things. This is how we've always done worship. What happens time and time again throughout history is that the church, is communicating the gospel message to the world, and it finds a way to do that in a way that's relevant to a particular time and context. But then what happens is culture changes, but then the church doesn't. Because we confuse the timeless truths of the gospel with the ever-changing methods that we need to adapt to actually communicate the gospel. So being relevant does not mean compromising on the mission and the message of the gospel. It means being willing to change and being willing to throw out the things that are outdated, irrelevant, and simply do not work today. So that's tip number 2, prioritize mission over method. And my third and final tip for you to remain relevant as a worship leader is to enroll in Worship Leader School. And of course, this is my unapologetic shout out for Worship Leader School, and I want you guys to understand the heart behind it. I've personally experienced the joy, the excitement, and the results of being a lifelong learner and in pursuing relevance as a worship leader. Because in the past, I've been very comfortable with the way that I've always done things, and I've been comfortable with not learning new skills or learning new technology as a worship leader. But as soon as I stepped out and I actually did push myself and challenge myself to learn new things, that's when some awesome things started to happen in my worship ministry, whether that's pastorally, like when I learned how to speak or pray in worship, or whether that has to do with all the technical stuff, like learning how to use Ableton Live to enhance the sound of my band and eliminate all those distracting mistakes in the worship service. In Worship Leader School, you're gonna find the course library, which contains all of the premium trainings to walk you through all the essential skills of worship ministry step by step. It's like me taking you by the hand and helping you learn all these new cool things that you can apply to your ministry. And then there's also gonna be a community, so you don't have to lead worship alone. You don't have to be an isolated worship leader. In the community, you're gonna be able to connect with worship leaders from all around the globe. A lot of them are here in the United States, but there's also a lot of them, in England, in Australia, pretty much anywhere that speaks English. And every week, I'm gonna be hosting office hours over Zoom video, so you can get real-time help from me and the other worship leaders who hop on the call. I know one of the easiest ways to become quickly irrelevant is when we remain isolated and we're not connecting with other worship leaders, because when you do start rubbing shoulders with others and connecting with others, that's when you get inspired with new ideas. So Worship Leader School is really simple. You're gonna have access to all of the premium online courses to help you grow as a worship leader. You're also gonna have access to the community that's exclusively for the students of Worship Leader School. We have a dedicated online forum where you're gonna be able to ask questions and also actually give advice to other worship leaders who are there asking questions. And then finally, you'll also have real-time support available to you through these live group coaching calls and office hours. But even if you don't enroll in Worship Leader School, there are so many other ways you can continue to learn and grow as a worship leader. You can also just be intentional about connecting with other worship leaders in your area. No matter how old you get, I believe that you can continue to be a relevant worship leader, so long as you cling to the mission of worship ministry rather than the methods. If you have any questions about Worship Leader School, let me know down below in the comments of this video. I'll be hanging out down there. And if you found this video helpful, hit that thumbs up button and share it with your other friends in worship ministry. And don't forget to subscribe to the Churchfront channel so you can continue to receive all of our latest content to help you grow yourself and grow your church.